I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Doors. Prepare for Prattle.
Secret Stories. Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan, and in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And today, we are going to look... I'm on my own again, due to self-isolation. You know, the whole thing. The whole worldwide pandemic. So I thought I'd catch up on some reading. I thought I'd look at some... I've been inspired by playing a lot of kind of video games recently. So I played Terminator Resistance. I've been playing Alien Isolation. And also there's a new Predator game coming out that I pre-ordered after trialing the demo. So I was kind of getting into that a little bit more. So I thought I'd go back and revisit and buy some more licensed comics from Dark Horse. So they've owned the license for Terminator and Aliens and Alien vs Predator and Predator for years now, and I don't know now about Disney owning 20th Century Fox. I don't know if that's... I mean, they're still going ahead as far as I know, but they might... Who knows if they might change their mind and they might want to bring it into Marvel, or they might just try and keep that more separate. Perhaps. I know they've rebranded 20th Century Fox 20th Century Studios, so that might just be another kind of, Touchstone or Buena Vista or something like that. So they might keep that fairly separate. So they may allow Dark Horse to keep the comics, the rights to the comics, the rights to those characters in the films. Who knows? But only time will tell. But they have a huge, massive history with these kind of characters, these franchises as well. Great comics were written, really, really good stuff. In some ways, better than a lot of the sequels that were made about these movies, I have to say. Alien vs. Predator was created as a comic book. That's where that whole version of the franchise kind of sprang from, that third arm of both franchises. There's been video games, films, there's been toys, there's been everything. There's a huge, massive part of that franchise, and it's a very interesting part as well. I'll be looking at that. So we're going to look at Aliens this week, then I'm going to look at Predator, then I'm going to look at Aliens versus Predator, and then I'm going to look at Terminator comics. So I'm going to try and steer away from kind of crossovers and stuff and try and stick with that specific franchise for the time being. But I thought now was a good time because, I'm still figuring out how to do it online with other people, in a decent way and not struggle with sound and what have you. So I'm looking into that and I'm researching that. But I think outside of May, so we're looking maybe June time, we're going to be looking at having a few other kind of real people and trying to connect with them as opposed to just doing stuff on my own. But I thought being on my own and being self-isolated was a good time to catch up with my reading. But let's get started. So I love the Alien franchise, the Aliens franchise, and I genuinely think out of all the comics I'm going to be looking at, I genuinely think the Aliens ones, the Alien franchise ones are the best. They are the best of these franchise comic books. There's a lot to them. There's a lot of kind of world building that's already gone on within the movies, within, subsequent movies. And I find it very interesting. The stories that are told are really quite good. So many different range of stories, which I'm going to talk about shortly, but utterly, utterly fantastic writing, some of these. What I'm going to do, I'm going to mention where you can get them as well. So all these stories are available on Comixology, so you can get them digitally. Again, you can buy them physically as well. On Comixology as well, they kind of have omnibus collections where these big, massive books they released a few years back, big bumper collections that featured hundreds of pages worth of comic books and several kind of mini-series in each book. But you can also buy them individually as like a one-off kind of graphic novel or kind of issue, if you will. And again, if you search on Comixology the specific titles, you will find these. But again, you can also find the omnibuses, and I'll mention which omnibuses they are in, and then you can make your decision if you want to buy those. I do recommend probably 1 to 4 of the omnibuses. Those, for me, they've got all the best stories. You'll see the ones I'm going to mention shortly, but I think those 3 and 4 specifically are the strongest of the volumes, I believe. 1 is also very good, but I'll go more into that later. So let's get down to brass tacks. Let's look at our top 5 Aliens comics. So number 1 is Genocide, Aliens Genocide. So this is from Omnibus Volume 2. It's written by Mike Richardson, John Arcudi, and the art is by Damon Willis. So this is just after what they call the kind of Earth War trilogy. So that's featured in Omnibus 1. So that involves, originally it was kind of a sequel to Aliens, because that's round about the time it was written. So it features Newt and Corporal Hicks dealing in kind of what happened afterwards, after Aliens, when they got back, and things have gone on. Newt is a lot older and dealing with this, and it basically Outbreak, Nightmare Asylum, and Female War. That's the full 3 miniseries. Again, really good. That's my first honourable mention I'll make. And basically that involves the aliens basically taking over Earth, infesting Earth. Obviously this is out of continuity now, so they had to rename the characters, and Ripley turns up, but now she's now an android. But it's nice to just read it as a sequel to Aliens. Not a lot of people liked Alien 3. So there you go. Anyway, on with this story. So this happens afterwards. So Earth is relatively back to normal. This comic introduces several kind of big kind of continuity things that would follow on through the Aliens comics. So they introduce the Grant Corporation, which is another kind of Weyland-Yutani type competing evil corporation. The tenor penny in this kind of franchise, and Predator and Alien versus Predator, there's just loads, but this one's quite interesting as well, and they do crop up quite a bit in these kind of several comics that I'm going to be talking about, and the other kind of miniseries that were created. It also introduces the idea of Xenozip, which is based on the royal jelly. So it's like this, I don't know, it's a substance. So I'll describe it. It is a jelly. It's kind of like a jelly. And you can get high off it, and it's kind of like almost like a steroid, like a mad steroid. The opening scene of the comic has a guy who's doing like a 500 meters or something, or what have you. And he takes some Xenozip and he runs, wins the race, and then carries on into a brick wall and kills himself, which is absolutely mad. And then the military, they've seen like the applications that it kind of has on certain people. So what they realize is that they had some while they managed to get some while the aliens were on Earth, managed to get some of this royal jelly for however much they got. And then now what they've been doing, the Grant Corporation have been replacing those materials with something fake. And then it's created all this kind of madness, this kind of like berserker madness, if you will. And the military, like obviously Grant Corporation wants the actual kind of the real stuff to work, so they want the normal effects they used to have, and they're going to promise the military this kind of mad. They test it out on a soldier, and he goes ape shit, kills everybody, and ends up dying anyway because of the effects of the drug. But they want all the faulty ones, so they'd rather make the faulty ones. So they agree to a kind of, what's the word? An expedition back to the Xenoworld, I'll call it the Xenomorph homeworld, but Xenoworld sounds cool. So that was introduced in Female War, the final trilogy in the first omnibus. So, and what happened was they kidnapped the alien queen from that planet and took her to Earth, and that kind of, all the other aliens kind of went a bit like they didn't know what to do. No one was commanding them or telling them how to go about or what they needed to do. So they all go a little bit weird, a little bit mad. So all the while this stuff's going on with the Grant Corporation, the aliens on the planet, because they don't know what to do, they're not sure. So the Royal Guard, so which are like these bigger, deadlier aliens that look after the Queen directly, they kind of create a new queen, but it's like slightly racially diverse. It's like a red queen. It's a red alien that is It's just, that's the only real difference. It's just the colour's a bit different. But all the while, there was another set of aliens who created their own queen as well. So they made a whole new queen as well. And they just fucking hate each other. And it basically is just a xenomorph civil war going on. They're just like tearing chunks out of each other and fighting, and trying to protect each queen. And obviously the Daniel Grant, who leads the expedition, he also takes along, colonial marines, because he would need to, with that many aliens and going to an alien planet. Obviously, again, this is technically out of continuity now, but again, I quite like it. I think it's a cool thing, with Prometheus and everything. But he takes along these marines. He's a really unlikable guy, Daniel Grant. He's really greedy, he's sexist, he's slimy, he's disgusting. But kind of all the way throughout this storyline, you see him kind of realise what he's put all these people's lives at risk. It doesn't even matter what they came for. He's like, you know what, I don't care. I just want to get out of this place alive. It doesn't matter anymore, because there's a lot of other there's a lot of kind of corporate sabotage in this one, and people like evil scientists doing things they shouldn't be, and there's synthetics in there and all sorts of stuff going on. It's got all the kind of things you would want from an alien story, but like it's slightly different, as like a different twist. It's interesting to see those elements and see like a really fucking arsehole of a character, because usually like the characters like Burke and things from the movies are always quite like you never really like them, but Daniel Grant is quite different in that you slowly do sort of like him. He does become, I wouldn't say it's a full kind of heel turn, or he's not completely not evil or greedy or a dick anymore, but he is a slightly better person throughout the story. But yeah, it's a really fun book. The artwork's really cool as well. It's really kind of nice. It's a very kind of 80s, 90s kind of artwork, but it works. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of cool kind of survival elements. Like we said, it's got a lot of kind of corporate greed elements and double crosses and stuff. And mostly that, I mean, that's any kind of alien's tale, is it does have a lot of double crosses and corporate greed, but it's also kind of wrapped within a survival tale. And those for me are the kind of some of the best, those are the best elements for me of Alien. And I quite like that you always kind of have that slight kind of, Weyland-Yutani-esque kind of like, oh, we can use this, the applications for this creature are amazing, and Weyland-Yutani want it for our military and things like that, and you think, that's interesting. There's a lot of that in the first kind of original trilogy of comics as well, miniseries. But it's really cool, it's really fun. I really quite like the red aliens as well. It's almost like they're almost in Aliens, the Aliens film, they're described like ants, and it's almost like red and black ants almost. And it's a really, really fun book, really excellent all the way through. Great character work, it's just fun. It's just fun. Again, like it's a good one. It's a really early one, but it's a really good one, and it's a bit different. Like we do get a lot of these alien stories can be a bit samey. There's a lot of them where there's a car going, it's an egg, and the alien got out, and yeah. I always like a different element to it, something new, something I've never seen before, or something you could try and add to it, like expand that universe. And a lot of these stories do that. They really expand on the universe. So that was number one. Oh, also, because the Red Aliens are actually quite popular in the kind of fandom with Aliens comics and the Xenomorph fandom. So much like last week with the RoboCop versus Terminator comic book being so popular, this comic book was so popular that Nika, who designed the action figures for Aliens as well, they created a red, I think they did a queen, and I think they did just a regular red Xenomorph as well. So again, goes to show how popular this storyline was, and it's a really, really good one. And again, what I like the ones that kind of feature more original characters a lot of the time. Sometimes I like comics to carry on what they were talking about in like a sequel or something like that. But I also like a good original story with similar elements and new characters and new, interactions, new ways it can go, and unpredictable, storylines, and you don't know if someone's going to die, or a chest burst is going to burst out of them, or anything could happen. That's why I quite like the unpredictability of having a whole new cast of characters, because you won't know, Ripley will always survive, Hicks will probably survive, Newt will probably survive, but these brand new cast of characters, everybody's fair game in regards to like deaths and stuff. So I really like that. Okay, so I'm going to go on to my second one, which is a really modern one actually. It was just out a few years ago. It's called Aliens Defiance, and it's written by Brian Wood with art by Tristan Jones and Tony Brasini, and there's a lot of other artists on there, but I didn't want to name absolutely everybody, but they're all on there. You can get this. This isn't in one of the omnibuses because it's one of the more modern comics. There's 2 volumes, or you can get a library edition, again on Comixology or, on eBay or Amazon or something like that. The library edition combines the 2 volumes together into one story. That's the one I bought. So this is a story about a colonial marine. If you like your colonial marine stories, then this is the one for you. Zula Hendricks, former marine who had basically her first battle out as a colonial marine, she got blown up and it affected her spine, so now she struggles, which has surgery and treatments and all sorts of stuff just to get her to she's in constant pain due to this spinal injury, but she soldiers on because that's what she does, and she doesn't want to seem weak or inferior, or and she says that she's short, she's black, and she's a woman, so she's had to really fight to get to that position in her career, to be a colonial marine. She's kind of, I think she was living on the streets and a soldier found her, but she's fought all her life, and now she's just continually still fighting her own disability, and it really makes for an interesting character study, and she's quite fascinating, and it's a good way to get into the character and kind of sympathize with everything she's going through and all the struggles she's had in her lifetime and dealing with us now. And it only gets worse from here for Zula. So there's Weyland-Yutani, and basically they send her on an expedition to find this kind of derelict. Again, another kind of ship. It's a very similar thing, very similar setup to a lot of the Aliens stories. So it's a distress beacon, derelict ship. She's got to retrieve the cargo. Now, she has a team of... Now, these are like colonial marine synthetics. So these guys are not like Bishop or something like that, or Ash. They are designed to be, killing machines. They are designed to be soldiers. They have a mission. They fulfill the mission. And they get there and they find out, well, Zula finds out. Everyone else knows what the cargo is. But obviously, it's aliens. And they have to bring back some sort of proof or DNA or, something. They want them alive, ideally. Weyland-Yutani ideally want these creatures alive. But one of the synthetics actually betrays his fellow synthetics because he realizes he's become kind of more self-aware than the other ones, and he has an identity, and he doesn't want to die and all this sort of stuff, and he's constantly kind of improving on himself, and he doesn't want to plug himself back into the kind of the system that all the other synthetics use, because that will just, his individuality will leave him, and help Zula, because Zula had no idea, and she knows that these things are fucking dangerous, and so does he. So they start working together, and they it's quite a nice little friendship that develops throughout. They basically are kind of almost stuck on this ship. They manage to kind of get the aliens out for the most part, or lock them off into one area of the ship. And I think there's another ship, I believe, and they find another doctor there, human doctor, who is having her own issues as well. It's a really good book. I don't want to spoil it too much. The artwork is quite good for the most part. There's some of the issues I don't really like the artwork, but there's just, the problem is that's the only issue with this book, is there's so many artists on it. Kind of wish there would just been one stable artist. Even if I didn't necessarily like the artist to begin with, I might have grown to like them, but because we kind of jumped around a bit, I wasn't 100%, and I'm not entirely sure, because literally like almost some of the books are like cut in half. Like one artist will do one half of the book and the other half, so I couldn't really tell you which one I don't particularly like, but That's down to you. You guys might love that artwork. I don't. But it's a really good story and it's fun. There's a lot of stuff going on. Like every issue, like there's another problem. Like, for example, we've got having to deal with aliens themselves. There's a chest burster surgery scene, which is amazing. They've got pirates. They've got another set of Marines because Weyland-Yutani feel like they've gone off mission, which they absolutely have. There's a queen alien and their own ship is constantly just falling apart and they're having to fix it and do stuff and all the while like Zula's dealing with this issue. Some really good stuff. My friend DL Ketis at DL Ketis is a big fan of this one and I'm glad he recommended it to me because it's just bloody great. If you're a fan of Alien Isolation, which again I said I was playing recently, check out this one because it does feature a small cameo by Amanda Ripley, and then she turns up again in the sequel, which I've not read but I've heard is very good, and that's Aliens Resistance, and I believe there's a further sequel to that called Aliens Rescue. So it just kind of carries on that story. Again, I heard they're very good, but I haven't read those two sequels. But this one, fantastic. It's probably my favourite modern Aliens comic that I've read. All these other ones are from quite a few years ago now, 10, 20 years ago. But this one has, in the last few years, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, give that a look. And right, moving on. So this one is probably the weirdest and wackiest of the Alien comics, but I really, really like it. It's called Music of the Spears. So not spheres, spears. This is from Aliens Omnibus Volume 4, written by Chet Williamson with art by Tim Hamilton. Now, this is such a popular story. They actually took the comic book story and made it into a novel as well, so which is very rare to happen to see a comic book made into a novel. It's usually a novel that's made into a comic book or something. So in the future, all the music that we get in the future is kind of androids that are based on, for example, like dead celebrities, dead musicians, like say Elvis, for example, and then they would kind of sing new songs or they would sing covers of, say, the Sex Pistols or something like that, or you get the Sex Pistols singing Elvis or, vice versa. That's basically all that music is. And it's kind of devolved, I think this is the same with everybody's music taste. They're like, oh, I hate that music. I hate this type of music. Oh, this type of music. Oh, music's shit now. Everyone feels that way at some point, I think. And it's kind of the story is almost like a criticism on the music industry in itself, but I won't get too far into that. But there's one musician who is he's bigger into kind of classical music and makes it's all original work, totally original music. There's even I think there's androids that are making kind of new metallic, almost like heavy metal, like a new style of heavy metal, killing each other on stage because they're androids that can destroy each other and stuff, which is really interesting. The main point of this is this musician is mad at the record industry and is frustrated with the music industry in general. And he says, I need to get this rage across. I need to get this indignant anger with everything that I'm feeling. I need to get this across in my music. How do I do that? How? I need the cry of an alien. So that's what this whole story is about. This musician is just trying to get the death cry or the right tone and sound from an alien that he heard on some past recordings when it was during the Earth War trilogy. He wants this. He needs this to carry on. And his record company weirdly agrees. They're like, yeah, that's fine. So what the record company does is they send ninjas to another company to steal an egg. So the opening scene of this comic is ninjas fighting xenomorphs. Absolutely brilliant. Fantastic. Bizarre, weird. I mean, that's the opening, and it only gets weirder throughout the comic. It just gets weirder. So the record company sets him up with a scientist. They get the egg, and then they have to find a donor. So they pick some guy off the street, and he turns out he's somebody he knew. He's this drug addict. He's on Xenozip, and he's part of this kind of religion, kind of cult that kind of worships the alien as a kind of god. So they're like, he's fine, we'll just kill him. But the musician, he starts off kind of, he's a bit like, oh, I'm not sure, can we not clone a body and then have something, do this, and we can do it, get the chestburster to come out of that kind of body, and they're like, no, it has to be a person, so do all this, and then slowly but slowly they try torturing the alien to get the right sound. And eventually they realise that that's not enough, and they start giving it bigger and bigger praise. So they give it there's a panther hurts him, and it's almost like a scream of pain. And he's like, I need more of that. So he starts sending in people, and he starts getting addicted to the xenozip as well. So he starts slowly becoming more obsessed with getting the perfection. He's an artist, so he wants the absolute perfect sound that is absolutely will just, and I think that's the creative drive when it goes too far. Like I said, it's kind of a criticism of, the music industry and how, if you get everything you want, you just descend into madness, and, it's like rock musicians or something, they get addicted to drugs, and you've got to go for the next high and the next high and the next high and the next high. It's very much like that. There's a lot of humor in it. There's a lot of kind of dark, twisted humor because of the subject matter is so weird. Again, I don't want to spoil it too much, but this is probably one of my favourites. But I think the ridiculousness of it just makes it all the kind of funnier and darker and more disturbing as well. There's a lot of black humour to it. The musician actually names the alien Mozart, and he's like, it almost treats him like a pet, and he loves him. He sets up this whole maze so the alien can feel like it can kill and stuff, and it's a fantastic story. Again, don't want to spoil it too much. It's utterly bonkers, absolutely bonkers, but it's brilliant as well. So just go in with a pinch of salt, but it is, once you get well into it. I really like the artwork. A lot of people don't really like the artwork apparently online, but I was really keen on it. I really dug the artwork. So yeah, give that one a look. Moving on. So this is number 4. Okay, so this is Aliens Labyrinth from Omnibus Volume 3. So this is written by Jim Woodring and with art by Killian Plunkett. So this, if you're after horror, so we had a bit of humour, but if you're after full-on, disturbing, fucked up, Cronenbergian body horror, this is the one for you. So it's probably one of the more violent and disturbing alien comics there are out there. So it starts off with a kind of very standard story of a bug hunt with colonial marines, and then it goes into a kind of standard evil mad scientists working with aliens, which we do get quite a lot of. But what makes this kind of interesting, what makes this one stand out, is the kind of backstory to the mad scientist and where he's come from and how he is, and just the characterization of him as well. It's fascinating. So the character's name is called Dr. Church. So he's found to be kind of experimenting with aliens, and he's dissecting them and working things out. He's got a really interesting thesis on it. I'm not sure if this is still kind of canon or depends on what the writers think, but he theorizes that because the aliens don't have any eyes, and because they have these large kind of heads, these large dome-like phallic heads, if you will, that they are psychically searching out prey. They can sense prey with their brain, with their mind, as opposed to with any other senses, because they don't seem to have a nose or anything like that. So I think that's a really interesting idea. And there's the experiment he does is he gives one of the soldiers tests. He says there's one who's just a regular soldier, and there's one who's hopped up on this drug, and these are weakened kind of aliens. And he's hopped up on this drug that he's so powerful, so dominant, that just his psychic, the way he feels and mentally, that he's more powerful than the alien. The alien kind of shirks away, which is a really interesting kind of idea. I don't know if it's been played on in any other kind of comics, but I feel like that's one of the things you could come back to. That would be fantastic to kind of see. But yeah, so his backstory. So he's a scientist, and he's when he was a young lad, his family were colonists who go to a planet and they find these aliens. They get kidnapped, get taken into a hive, and usually you would just have the face huggers and the chest bursters and all that kind of scenes coming in, but it doesn't happen like that. So the aliens are actually ill for some sort of black mold stuff, so they're all kind of dying. The face huggers are coming out, and they have to physically put the face huggers on their face to even work, and even then there's when the chest burster's in there, it actually dies while it's in their body. There's some really fucked up stuff. There's a bit where the scientists, he's watching people being like, they're feeding them, they're overfeeding them, they're filling them full of all sorts. It's people just losing their mind. It's really, I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's really dark and disturbing. The whole sequence of his backstory is kind of based on Dante's Inferno, apparently. It's really quite dark and disturbing, and you can really see it in some scenes. You're like, oh my God, this is what I imagine hell would be like. This is definitely a disturbing little story. But yeah, it's just really good. There's a fair bit of action to it, and again, a lot of dark humor and black comedy, but it's really fascinating. But the artwork just adds to the whole. I think the artwork is it's perfect for the story, really, because it just adds. The aliens look, disturbing, scary, but all the stuff in the Dante's Inferno section is just so disturbing, and I just, it goes above and beyond. Like, just reading that at night, before you go to bed, is not a good idea, because it is just horrific, just horrible stuff. And even the stuff he's doing on the space station himself, because one of the Marines is a scientist as well, and he kind of gets involved with the scientist, and he's not sure to trust him, or will he trust him, won't he trust him. There's another person on board who was related to somebody who died at that station. There have been quite a few deaths, which is suspicious. But again, I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's a really good story. It's fun. There's another story on my honourable mentions which would have gone in place of this, but they are quite similar in a way. So I've left that in my honourable mentions. But yeah, Dr. Church is a very disturbing character. There's a section where he's like takes his alien for a walk. I think it's called Trixie or something, and he's got this like metallic lead harness thing, and I'm just like, and they're just like, what are you doing, man? And he's so messed up, the guy, but he seems to be allowed to do all these experiments somehow, and for unknown reasons. But yeah, definitely check that one out. Labyrinth, Aliens Labyrinth. Okay, number 1 then is Aliens Salvation. So this is written by some comic book royalty, and that's why it's so good. It's written by Dave Gibbons, and with art by, Dave Gibbons of Watchmen, and art by Mike Mignola of Hellboy. So this is a really interesting one. There's a lot of kind of religious parallels and allegories that are in the alien stories. They describe aliens as demons or describe things as hell, like previously in the Dante's Inferno section, in Labyrinth we were talking about. Some really, really good stuff. I think this is the best one that uses that kind of religious subtext and allegories and all that kind of religious theming that goes into these stories. This is the best one. So a cook who's on a ship that's carrying a cargo. I bet you can guess what the cargo is, can't you? So this cook's a bit odd. He borders on kind of religious zealotry. He is that religious. It's kind of like it's all-consuming for him. So he's going about his day, and some of the cargo isn't secure and gets loose. It's aliens. It's aliens. I'll spoil it now. You don't know this for the first bit of the story, but you do eventually learn. So the captain gets injured, grabs the cook, and he goes, right, get in this escape pod, we're going. And everyone's like, what are you doing? And we're like, I'm leaving you behind, you fucking idiots. You didn't secure the cargo, and now we're fucking dead. So gets in the pod, and he lands on this kind of island on a planet which there's only one landmass, so they're literally on a desert island on a planet, which is quite interesting. And this story shares a lot of similarities to Tales from the Black Freighter, which was the comic within the comic of Watchmen, which is again by Dave Gibbons. It's very similar in some respects to that story, but again, if you haven't read that, I won't spoil that. So and then eventually the cook is forced to kill the captain because he's just going insane. He's got all these drugs because he's in so much pain and stuff, and they're trying to eat stuff on the planet, but nothing's edible. So both starving, they're both going a bit mad, and eventually he has to kill him. He decides to kill him once he realizes that they brought the aliens aboard, and it was his fault effectively. So he realizes that the actual ship that they were on has actually, it started to decline and it's made planetfall. The cook decides that he's going to take the weaponry, take everything that the captain had, and try and make his way there, because it's going to have a beacon, but it is literally crawling with aliens. And his kind of journey and his kind of inner monologue is so like dark, disturbing and twisted, and this kind of dark religious imagery keeps kind of cropping up, and it almost looks like Vietnam or something, like a Vietnam jungle, something. The reds and the blacks that Mignola uses and the mixes in together and does conjure those images of hell and demons and things like that. So no wonder he kind of feels like that. But yeah, it's a brilliant little story. He bumps into one of the survivors from the ship, but they need to get into the ship to kind of activate the beacon or to seal themselves in or make themselves safe. Or I can't remember exactly. It's been a while since I read it now, but I think this was one of the first ones I read. It's a great little survival story anyway. Again, I don't want to spoil it too much, but that's Alien Salvation is fantastic. Again, this has actually been released, I think it was on the 30th anniversary. There was a release of this, and I think it was part of another collection as well, because it is that good, it is that popular, and I can see why, and it looks gorgeous beyond belief. If you like Mike Mignola's artwork, I mean, I'm not a massive fan of his most recent kind of artwork where all the characters don't have any shoulders and kind of just have this one big long neck. And that's not really, I don't think that's a good look for a lot of the characters. But when he's on his top form, he is good. Okay, so I think we're coming to the end. I've got another. So we've got a few honourable mentions. So I mentioned earlier the Earth War trilogy. So that's Outbreak, Nightmare Asylum, and Female War. I would say Nightmare Asylum is the best one and with the best art. So give that one a look. That's in the first Aliens Omnibus, Volume 1, if you want to give that a look. Stronghold's a really good one. It's quite similar in subject matter to Labyrinth, so I didn't include this one, but this one's quite humorous. And again, it's about mad scientists doing things with aliens that they probably shouldn't be doing, and they get found out. But what's really cool about this one is that the whole storyline is set on a ship where there's only one human and everybody else is synthetics. They've got this kind of they've got this really cool character called Jerry, who's he's designed to look like a xenomorph. He smells like a xenomorph, and he can go in and study the aliens. And there's another one, I can't remember the name of the other one, but he's like almost like this massive Terminator type alien. And he when he looks at the xenomorph, he looks like he needs to kill it. But when Jerry speaks, because he's an android, he's a synthetic person. He speaks, and then the big one kind of goes, okay, it's Jerry. He's an android. I don't kill him. But yeah, you get to see kind of Jerry kind of toting a gun. You get to see him smoking cigars. It's really quite funny, but also kind of you see the development and the freedoms and some of the abuse that synthetics go through in the kind of aliens universe. And what are they? Are they alive? How should we treat them? All that sort of stuff is some really creepy kind of imagery, but it's quite action-packed as well. It's another really action-packed one, which is good. There's a lot of humour to it as well, but also a lot of dark kind of subject matter, dark, disturbing stuff. But I really like, if I didn't include Labyrinth, I would have included Stronghold 100%. There's this one, so this is Aliens Sacrifice. So, sorry, Stronghold is also on Omnibus Volume 4. Sacrifice is about a priest who is shipwrecked, again, on a planet of human colonists, but there's a dark secret. And it involves an alien, but I won't spoil it too much. But I think, again, if I didn't include Salvation, I probably would have had this one on instead because of the religious kind of imagery and allegory and everything. And that's on Omnibus. That's in Omnibus Volume 3. Rogue, Aliens Rogue. So this is an interesting one because they decide that humans decide to make an alien king, which is a bit different, and it's a very unique creation, and again I think it's a bit of a fan favourite as well. I think the statues with the king alien, but it's something a bit different. You get a proper smackdown slobber knocker with the queen alien versus the king alien, so that's pretty cool. Aliens Apocalypse, subtitle Destroying Angels. So this was a comic that kind of investigated the space jockeys before Prometheus. So it's very similar to Prometheus in many ways. There's a lot of this, almost the whole story matter is Prometheus, but it was created before Prometheus. That's on Omnibus Volume 6. It's probably the best story on Volume 6, if the only one, I think. Again, you guys might like 5 and 6, Volumes 5 and 6. It's a lot of shorter stories, but there might be a few ones you might quite like. I remember there was one by John Byrne in the 50s, which was interesting, but nothing really shout out to me. I think there's one called Stalker, which is about aliens attacking Vikings. It's like a Viking. It's like set way before, and they kind of see the alien as a dragon and stuff, which is pretty cool. But yeah, give 5 and 6 a go, and give any other Alien books a go. But these are the ones I'm recommending anyway. So again, you can buy this individually, Aliens Apocalypse, if you want. So Aliens Apocalypse, Destroying Angels, yeah, buy individually, or buy 5 and 6 as well. I mean, there's still some stories in there that are okay. Aliens Frenzy. This was known as Berserker, and they changed the title for some reason. Don't ask me why, because nobody ever seems to know. But it's a very action-packed colonial marine story. So it's quite kind of out and out action. If you don't want much horror, but you want out and out action, colonial marines kicking ass, this is the story for you. That's also on Volume 4. So again, Volume 3 and 4 are very strong volumes of the omnibuses to get. Again, buy them individually if you like the sound of one of them, but they're there online, available, and, eBay, Amazon, wherever else you want. Okay, listener comments. So I asked if people had a favourite licensed comic, what they think of licensed comics, yay or nay, are they good, are they bad, which ones are good, which ones are really good. So Dan Tween, so that's at Dan Burden 1138, he said Dark Horse did some amazing stuff with the Star Wars license for years. Yes, they did. Some really good Star Wars material there and expanded universe stuff. And again, I know that Disney reset the whole kind of timeline, but I like a lot of the Legends stuff. I think it's really cool. I get that they wanted to reset a little bit and kind of reestablish stuff that's happened. They're still introducing a lot of stuff that was introduced into the Legends, a lot of characters and plot points and ideas, like, the Emperor having, clones and being alive after Jedi, that was Legends, that was, Dark Empire and stuff like that. So some really good kind of Star Wars stuff. Again, I'm not poo-pooing the Marvel stuff, the Disney stuff, or the original Marvel stuff. It's all good shit. So just check it out, if you can. Again, I think Disney have re-released a lot of the Dark Horse stuff digitally and physically, so give those a look. So yeah, good shout. I might do something on the Star Wars comics, but I do need to read a lot more before I decide any top 5 or something like that. So we'll see about that. So I am Jack's Musings at I am Jack's Musings. Big fan of the show, number 1 fan. The best fan. So he says, Batman vs. Predator is one of my favourite comic books of all time. I'm also a Scooby till I die. So I thoroughly enjoyed most of what they did with Buffy. So that was the Scooby gang in Buffy, as they were described. Okay, Scott Weatherly at Scott Weatherly. So that's 20th Century Geek Pod as well. If you have been listening to him, I do recommend. We do have a lot in common, a lot of similar tastes. So I do recommend all of his stuff. He says, I 100% agree with these picks. My personal favourites are the Schaefer Predator trilogy and the Terminator story that started with Tempest in the 90s. Chris Warner's art is ace. Yeah, he's been very involved in a lot of these kind of franchises, and I'm going to have a look at some of those, maybe, in the next couple of podcasts. So keep your eye out, Scott, and we'll see what we talk about. Right, so guys, you can find me as always, on Facebook at Secret Bores, Twitter at Dan_Bores, Instagram SpiderDan Secret Bores, and the podcast is available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, many more. And if you'd like to donate towards the podcast, you can buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/SpiderDan and the Secret Bores. And don't forget to use the hashtag #PrepareForPrattle every time you interact with us. Thank you very much, guys, for your time today. Have a great couple of days, and I will see you next week for Top 5 Predator Comics. Bye-bye!